Good morning, everyone. Let me start by thanking you for the large turnout today. For many of you, I've met at different times or remember your faces. For a few others, I may not remember their faces, but I'm sure we see your reportage of INEC Edo State in the last few months. This is a post-election meeting with the media. During this week, 2 days ago, we had a post-election meeting with the civil society organizations, especially those who observed elections in the state. Yesterday, we had the post-election meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security to look at issues of security, how we did, what we need to improve upon. And we thought it wise that today we should also meet with the media. The elections have been concluded across the country, in Edo State specifically. We had election on 3 different days. We had the presidential and National Assembly election. Then we had the State House of Assembly election. And then we had to have supplementary election to conclude election in 3 the State House of Assembly seats and 1 of the House of Representative seats. All the elections have been concluded. The results have been announced. The winners have been declared. And the certificates of return have been made to all the declared winners. Cycle has ended at our end. We know that a few of the contestants in the election have gone to the tribunal, and so the tribunal will handle the rest of it, the tribunal and the court. So on our part, we thought we should meet with the critical stakeholders that we've worked with in the course of the election to say thank you, also to listen to the maybe 1 or 2 suggestions you want to make, observations or areas that you need clarification on. We would be able to give clarification on that. I'm not in a position to say how well we performed in the elections, but what I can tell you is that myself, the management team and myself and the entire INEC in Edo State, we strived as much as possible to conduct the election the best way we can, based on the laws, based on the Constitution, based on the laws, based on the guidelines for the election. At all times, for me, and I can say for most of my team members, we had acted in the best possible way we could. I had no interest in any of the candidates or any of the political parties. It was interesting that at some point, when some of the elections were concluded, we had a few protests here and there. And interestingly, the 3 political parties in the state that won various elections, various seats, had at different times also complained about where they did not win. And I found that interesting that where they won, they were happy about it. Where they did not win, in some instances, they raised issues about it. And I think it's a part of the game politicians play, that whenever they win, it was victory for democracy. It was a reflection of how the people loved them and voted for them. And where they did not win, they would always try to find 1 or 2 reasons to excuse themselves why they didn't do well and want to blame everyone apart from themselves. So some of the protests, we gave everybody an opportunity. They were coming here to the office sometimes with a large crowd, majority of whom didn't even know why they came. And we listened to them, we received their complaints, and there was little we could do about the complaints anyway. One of the misunderstandings people had about this election was the new provision of the Electoral Act that says that INEC has 1 week, within 1 week after the declaration of a winner, that INEC can review the declaration. And people thought that it meant every election that has been declared, then INEC must sit down and look at it and then make another call. That wasn't the case. And in any event, when they say INEC can review a declaration made, if you read that provision very well, you'll see it says that if INEC believes that the declaration was not made willingly, or if INEC finds out that it did not follow the due process. And when we say INEC, we are talking about the commission, which is made up of the chairman and the 12 national commissioners. In other words, we are talking about the headquarters of the commission. They are the ones that have the power to review any declaration made within 1 week. They have the power to do that. And also to mention this, I had mentioned this when we presented the certificates of return to the last 3 members-elect of the State House of Assembly here, that once the declaration has been made, that is final for us in the state. And also to state that, and I'm sure we all, those who didn't know, now know, that the duties and the powers of the resident electoral commissioner do not include counting of votes, tabulation of votes, recording of results, announcements of results, or declaration of winners. So if election is conducted in the field, and the votes are counted there by the presiding officer, recorded in the result sheet, there is nothing the REC can do, even if you say there was a mistake or a deliberate falsification of that information at that level. It will go to the collation center. At the collation center, the collation officer at the ward will have to be satisfied that what has been presented as the result of the polling unit is accurate before he or she admits it into collation. And once the person has admitted it into collation and has collated it, it now moves to the next level of collation. So at every level, the persons who can correct whatever anomaly there is, it starts with the presiding officer. If the person makes a mistake, it goes to the ward collation officer, who has the opportunity to correct that. If that is not corrected, it goes to the next level, depending on the nature of the election. It could go to the local government collation officer, and at that point, they also have to be satisfied with the figures brought from all the wards in collating. And then if it is the presidential election, for instance, it comes to the state collation, and at the state collation, there is a state collation officer, which is not the REC. The REC just sits next to the state collation officer and supports the process. But the person who collates the results and takes the decision is the state collation officer, who is usually a university don appointed by INEC. And when I say INEC, by headquarters. And so when the result for the state is collated, we take it to the national headquarters, the one you watch live on television. You will see that the chairman of INEC, who is the returning officer for the presidential election, will call on the state collation officers for the presidential election scope to come with the resident electoral commissioners and present the results. It's presented by the state collation officer for the presidential election, and that is collated, and the result is announced so that they can address it at that level of collation. I have no powers to make any correction on the collated results. We drew the attention to it, and we expected them to correct it. Some of them, they corrected them. There are a few I hear, I understand they were not corrected at that level. But if they did not correct it there, then it means that the opportunity open to anyone who wants to complain about that is to raise it up at the next level of collation. So for instance, if the correction needed to have been done at the ward level or at the local government level and it was not done, you can take it to the next collation level and get it addressed before the declaration is made. But if that wasn't done, unfortunately, and there's a good case about that, what anyone who is not satisfied with has to do two things, actually. Could ask INEC, the headquarters, to review it, and if they get the information on time and they are satisfied, they can call for that to be reviewed. Otherwise, it is to go to the tribunal. And of course, whatever records anybody needs in going to the tribunal, if the records are records kept by INEC, the state office, they write to us, we issue the certified true copies of those documents, and one can work with it at any time. So I thought I should put this out there because I know that during the time of the election, I saw a lot of very uncomplimentary reportage, some attacking my person or the commission. Some of them may have been that the reporters were too lazy to get the details. And so whatever a politician or a political interest put out there, they just reported it the way it was. Importantly, to thank the media here in the Edo State for the cooperation we've had during this period of the election, before the election, during the election, and after. Especially before the election, many of you granted us opportunities to address the public, to tell them what we were doing. Some of you came to interview us or invited us to your stations for live broadcasts sometimes to let people know what was going on. We know it was part of the work you are supposed to be doing anyway, but then even when you're doing your work and you do it well, we should say thank you for you doing your work well, and we hope that we'll continue to have more support and cooperation from you in the days ahead and in the months and years ahead. So if you go to one polling unit and see the votes counted there, that's not the result of the election. That's just a result of that polling unit. Well, if you mention that in that polling unit, this is what the scores was, it's okay. But you cannot make a declaration as to who has won the election. The person that makes the declaration is the person who has collated the results, the final result for that constituency, and sees who has scored what, and announces who has scored what, and then says, on the basis of this person having scored the majority of votes cast and having satisfied the provisions of the law, is hereby declared the winner. That's what the rule is. Accreditation of party agents. In fact, that of party agents was the most troublesome. Parties would not send their agents on time. And then on the day of the election, you have too many people coming from a particular party claiming to be agents of the party. And so what the commission did using technology, and it actually started during the era of COVID, where they now created portals. If you want to be, parties should select their agents, front load this information onto the portal. INEC will now print and send the tax to the state. And truly, it worked very well. There would be one or two instances where that didn't work. Same thing with the journalists, with the media. I'm sure there was a window period for you to send in your information. Did you send in that information within that period, all of you?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
And did you send all the information required? So the name of the reporter, the media, the passport photograph, and all those? Good. And then this wasn't managed here. It was managed centrally. And then they sent the tax. When you say more than half did not get, we need to interrogate that. Okay, let's start from those of you here in the room. How many of you submitted, or were your name submitted, your details submitted online? Okay. No, what I mean is, how many of you did not get the accreditation that came from headquarters? Yeah. So what was the issue? Is it that they sent, your name was not sent at all to us? Well, I will apologize for that. I really apologize for that. But I also know that Towards the end, we were given the mandate to recognize people locally and then still give the tax to. We had situations where some polling units had up to 2,000 registered voters. And there's a polling unit, maybe a newly created polling unit, not far from there, that had only 30 registered voters. So why don't you move some people from here to that other one so that you have an even spread of voters? The suggestion about, in fact, yesterday we had that discussion too when we had the ISS meeting. The issue about the advantages and disadvantages of having a cluster of polling units in one large premises, schools for instance. It has its advantage, it has its disadvantage. One of the disadvantages is that if somebody wants to disrupt the process, it just targets there, so 20 polling units are disrupted. But if you have them spread out, then if you want to disrupt, you'll need to go to so many places, and in the process, you would be stopped. So there are advantages and disadvantages about it. And at the end of it, like I keep stressing, the quality of what we do is a reflection of us as a people. Because all the people who were involved in these elections were Nigerians. The people who conducted the elections were Nigerians. The people who contested the elections were Nigerians. The people who disrupted the elections were Nigerians. The people who shot people during the election were Nigerians. The people who reported the elections were Nigerians. So it is for us as Nigerians to decide and act the right way at all times. I mean, if people disrupt the elections, they didn't just on their own stand up and say they want to disrupt the elections. Somebody recruited them to do that. And who are the people recruiting them? The same people who are supposed to be beneficiaries of the process, the politicians. We need to call these people out.